Many parts of many walls are still to be discovered. On the Yellow River, close to the once so hotly disputed Ordos region, there are still a few remains. Here and there, ruined towers and tumbling sections of walls still rear out of the sand. Over the centuries, the wind and the rain have taken their toll on the walls of packed earth. The relics of the old ramparts seem to merge with the natural landscape, as if they were never built by man. Hard to believe here in the myth of the wall as a symbol of the nation's strength. You're not a real man if you've not got to the Great Wall, Chairman Mao said. But for many of the country people here, the wall is just a part of their everyday lives. In their villages, they work beside the wall just as their forefathers did 2,000 years ago. Sometimes these practical farmers make their own breaches in the national icon. Further west, in the Taklamakan Desert, the Chinese always knew that the ancient wall existed. But they never paid any attention to these Han Dynasty relics. A shame, as the builders had once taken great trouble to make sure their wall would be strong and effective. As soon as a section of the wall was finished, the local commander ordered a quality test. It simulated the worst-case scenario, a barbarian attack. Archers shot a hail of arrows against the wall. Only if all the arrows bounced off did the wall get official approval. Maybe it passed its quality test once. 2,000 years later, the Han wall has disappeared into the dust of the Taklamakan Desert. But Orlstein's discovery of the ruins catapulted this first Chinese Great Wall into the world's consciousness. Stein finally reached Dunhuang Oasis, but he soon returned to the desert with his crew of local diggers for a more thorough investigation of the Chinese limes. In some places, it still rose almost 2 meters above the desert floor. Stein followed the line of the wall for nearly 100 kilometers. During his excavations, he uncovered numerous ancient relics. Among them were wooden strips.
Shovel, please.
Upon closer inspection, he noticed that these strips were written records. Stein had found orders, instructions, and soldiers' letters from as far back as the 1st century BC. they give a precise picture of frontier defense at that time. The commander's seals and secret codes were split into separate tablets. One strip says that a soldier called Wang is on duty for 355 days a year. There are private letters, like invitations to a family celebration. But the most important records show that the wall had a highly developed system of optic telegraphy, as Stein called it. There were watchtowers along the wall, where the soldiers would pass on a signal as soon as invaders were spotted. Using smoke by day and fire by night, the signal was relayed to the towers lined up inside the wall's boundaries and ultimately reached the garrison. Using a standardized code, the soldiers could even pass on the distance and the strength of the attacking force. In less than 24 hours, the message could travel several hundred kilometers. Stein later wrote, "To the northeast, 4 towers lit up by the sun behind us could be made out echeloned in the distance, silent guardians of a wall line which I thought I could still recognize here and there in faint streaks of brown shown up by my glasses. What a fine position, I thought, this height of the fort wall must have been, for a commandant to survey his line of watch stations and to look out for the signals they might send along it." The romantic view of an explorer from the beginning of the 20th century. But the private letters written by soldiers 2,000 years before tell a different story. The reality of the wall.
Danger is never too far from the Empire, but I have never felt it as close as I do now. Yesterday I saw the silhouettes of these skin-clad warriors on a mountain ridge. They were welded to their horses like monsters. It was a terrible sight. Now I'm in Ling Hu company. That means destroy the barbarians. They gave us that name because of our supposed bravery. If we ever were brave, that was a long time ago. The emptiness of this cruel landscape is unbearable.
The Chinese hated serving on the wall. The soldiers and farmers constantly faced the danger of raids and the terrible weather conditions in summer and in winter. Tough conditions and poor food were made worse by homesickness. Their letters tell of despair. The despair of men condemned to fritter away their lives in this miserable country. And their bitterness when the emperor ignores their requests for a new posting. More and more soldiers desert to the Xiongnu, the barbarians, the enemy. The blazing heat of summer and the freezing winter storms take their toll on the wall itself. It does not, after all, seem to be made for eternity. This great construction that the officials hoped was to be of use for hundreds of generations turns out to be an economic disaster, swallowing massive sums for repairs. The